Welcome back to another tabletop review. Today we'll take a look at a two-part solution for adapting the Streamlight TL Racker Forend to fit the 20-gauge Mossberg 590 Shockwave. The Streamlight Racker is an excellent solution for attaching a high-lumen tactical light to the very popular Mossberg 590 Shockwave. However, the Streamlight Racker is only available for the 12-gauge Shockwave. What if yours is the 20-gauge Shockwave? Is there a way to effectively fit the Streamlight Racker to a 20-gauge Shockwave? This review is an updated video on how to modify the Streamlight Tactical Light Racker Forend to fit the 20-gauge Mossberg Shockwave through the addition of an easy-to-make tube sleeve for the Shockwave's action slide tube and adding a simple retention ring to the action slide tube nut. About 2 years ago, I did a review of the Streamlight TL Racker Forend in which I demonstrated its installation. That review remains one of my most frequently viewed videos. However, the firearm I used in the video was actually my 20-gauge Mossberg Shockwave. While the installation process demonstrated in the video was fine for attaching the Streamlight Racker, the Streamlight Racker is actually only designed to fit the 12-gauge version of the Shockwave. Attempting to attach the Streamlight Racker to the 20-gauge Shockwave will ultimately result in failure. And the thing is, I really needed a good tactical light on my 20-gauge Shockwave. I believe it's critical to be sure of your target, especially in a home defense situation. Not only is the Streamlight Racker a great tactical light solution, I really like the Streamlight Tactical Light Forearm, so finding a solution was important. Since the diameter of the 20-gauge action slide tube and the tube nut are smaller than the 12-gauge version, the Streamlight Racker's larger inside diameter results in too loose of a fit and the Racker could fall away from the forearm, and in addition, the 20-gauge tube nut is too small in diameter and will eventually overrun the inside forward stops of the Racker and potentially slide forward and off the gun. By the way, I've demonstrated detailed disassembly and reassembly in my earlier Mossberg 590 Shockwave video, so I won't cover those activities in detail during this video. However, for your convenience, I've included a condensed demonstration of disassembly and reassembly, including the sleeve tube and the retention ring solution at the very end of this video, which you might find helpful. So disassembled, and taking a look at the Streamlight Racker and the Shockwave action slide tube, you can see that there is a good sized gap between the slide action tube and the inside of the Racker. If you would pull down hard, the Racker could potentially be pulled off the action slide tube. That's the first problem. Adding a sleeve tube addresses this first issue. Now, to increase the diameter of the action slide tube assembly, a sleeve tube or pipe wrapped with some tape can be added to the action slide assembly, which basically through friction and its larger diameter will give the 12-gauge Streamlight Racker firmer attachment to the 20-gauge action slide assembly tube. The result is that the Streamlight Racker cannot be pulled down and off the action slide assembly. Making a sleeve tube for your 20-gauge Shockwave begins with disassembling the gun and removing the action slide tube. You also need the Streamlight Racker unit. As for adding a sleeve tube, you'll need to insert about 5 3/8 inch length of 1.15 to 1.2 inch outside diameter thin wall pipe over the slide tube. In my case, I searched through my stock of scrap steel pipes and was lucky to find what I needed: an old metal telescoping closet hanger rod. The inner pipe was pretty close to what I needed. If you check your local hardware store, you'll probably find inexpensive telescoping hanger rods. The smaller diameter inner rod is more likely to be the size you need. Also, I noticed that if I used a slightly longer length of sleeve, about 5.5 inches in length, and notched out about 3/16 of an inch on the rear end so the sleeve sat more flush with the back end of the assembly, I was able to get a firmer installation. In my case, once installed, the unit no longer dropped away from the assembly, although it still wasn't as tight as I would like for the inside of the Streamlight forearm. So I used about 4 wraps of black duct tape on both ends of the tube to increase the diameter just a bit more. It probably wasn't really necessary, but this gave me a nice, smooth, snug fit. I also added wrap to the middle area just to hide the white paint on the pipe sleeve. The addition of the scrap tube or sleeve to the inside of the Streamlight Racker forearm body provides a firm base for the forend, and the length of the scrap tube provides a nice firm attachment. However, this is only the first part you'll need. By itself, the sleeve tube only works to keep the Streamlight Racker from falling down and away from its attachment to the action slide assembly. It does not adequately keep the Streamlight Racker from overriding its stops in the racker that keeps the Streamlight Racker from moving forward and potentially off the forearm. This is where the second part of the solution comes into play, a retention ring for the action slide nut. Taking a closer look at the second issue, when we install the 20 gauge tube nut, although it appears to catch the inside stops of the racker, the contact is actually minimal. And you can see that it probably wouldn't take much forward force to override the stops. That is indeed the case, and as such, it's the second problem to overcome. During testing, I shot 25 rounds to this gun with only the sleeve pipe addition without a problem. However, I'll admit that I shot light loads of birdshot and I didn't rack the pump action harshly forward during use. It was when I tried to race the action while shooting hotter buckshot that the problems really began to develop. I noticed the Streamlight Racker forend was starting to move too far forward, only slightly at first, but if I really put some force into the forward stroke, there was noticeable movement. As I said, the problem is that the diameter of the inside of the Streamlight Racker is designed to fit the larger 12 gauge action slide assembly tube and tube nut. This is the unit that the forearm telescopes over. The addition of the tube helps secure the Streamlight Racker and the action slide assembly, especially with the addition of the tape around the added sleeve pipe. But because the slide tube nut is too small in diameter and does not effectively engage the Streamlight Racker under use, especially when run hard, the unit will eventually begin to overrun the stops inside the Racker unit. Some type of modification will be needed to increase the size of the nut to better bridge the gap. Here I'll review the process that I went through to make the retention ring to solve the problem of over-forward movement when racking the slide forward. I needed to create some type of block to the over travel, as a larger 12 gauge action slide tube would do. Since the 20 gauge nut is too small in diameter to adequately engage the inside stop lips on the inside of the Streamlight Racker, I needed to more fully bridge the gap. I found a washer or ring machined to accommodate the 20 gauge nut with an outside dimension to bridge over the retention lips of the Racker forend. Worked very well. That retention ring or washer turned out to be an outside diameter of 1.475 inches with a 1.1 inch hole. I chose a 0.125 inch thick strip of aluminum because it was available and easy to cut and work with files. I drilled a 1 inch hole first and then filed the opening to allow the nut to be inserted. Then I cut as much off as I could from the outside of the ring with a hacksaw and using files and finish the outside diameter until it fits snugly inside the Shockwave Racker up against the forward inside lips, which would block the Streamlight Racker's movement forward when racked. It might look a little crude, but it worked. Reassembling the action slide tube with the retention ring and the slide tube nut, you can see the aluminum retention ring bridges the gap fully. To gain a few more threads of attachment with the tube nut, I filed about another 1/16 of an inch off the thickness of the ring and filed just a bit more off the top of the ring so as to clear the underside of the barrel better. And that's basically it. From what I can tell, this retention ring could easily be made out of plastic or a much thinner stainless steel. Personally, I would have chosen plastic over aluminum if I'd had a scrap piece available at the time. It would appear that the addition of the tape-wrapped sleeve tube actually does little to keep the Streamlight Racker from moving forward on the forend beyond the friction of the tape. However, adding only the retention ring before the tube nut does not keep the back end of the Streamlight Racker from potentially being pulled down and away from the action slide assembly. As such, to successfully secure the Streamlight Racker to the 20-gauge Shockwave, you'll need the combination of both the sleeve tube and the retention ring. The good news is that both of these items, the sleeve tube and retention ring, are fairly inexpensive and easy to make with basic tools. Now, before we end today's video, I'd like to remind you, if you haven't already, be sure to like, share, and subscribe down below. And thanks for watching. To test out this new combo solution, I took my 20-gauge Shockwave with the sleeve tube and the retention ring to the range and loaded it with Federal 2 3/4 inch maximum buckshot 20 pellet PowerShock 1200 feet per second shells. These were the shells that I was using when the last failure occurred. At $2 per shell, 50 shells seemed like more than enough testing for the day. I purposely ran the rack as hard as I could, checking the Streamlight Racker attachment frequently for any signs of over travel. No movement was detected throughout the session, and the overall operation was flawless. It may be too early to tell definitively, but so far it appears that the problem has been solved. So the Streamlight TL Racker wasn't designed to fit the 20-gauge Shockwave, but with a little ingenuity and patience, by adding a sleeve tube and properly sized retention ring to the Streamlight TL Racker, it's possible to get a good stable fit. So if you really want to add a Streamlight TL Racker to your 20-gauge Shockwave, this may be your solution. How do I feel about the Streamlight Racker now that I've been able to add one to my 20-gauge Shockwave? To be honest, I still unintentionally hit the on button from time to time, and I also have had to reduce the length of the Racker's safety strap for a more comfortable feel, but otherwise I really couldn't be more pleased. The Streamlight Racker is a great addition to my Shockwave. As a home defense weapon, with an excellent laser and exceptional tactical light, it would be hard to do better than the Mossberg Shockwave equipped with the Streamlight Racker. I hope you have found this video to be helpful, and remember, any weapon you carry is better than the one you left at home. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll be back for my next tabletop review. Until next time, stay safe. This optional section provides a brief demonstration of disassembly and reassembly, including the sleeve tube and retention ring solutions for the 20-gauge Shockwave. Remove the magazine end cap, move the forend to half racked, and remove the barrel. In my case, I needed to remove the trigger assembly pin screw. Remove the cap and the Allen screw and the grip. Now I'll drive the trigger group assembly pin out. remove the trigger group assembly. And remove the left cartridge stop and right cartridge interrupter. Remove the bolt slide. And now you can remove the action slide assembly with the stock forearm. And I'm going to remove the stock forearm from the action slide assembly. Reassembly. I'm going to begin by installing the retention ring and the sleeve tube into the Streamlight Racker. Make sure everything is properly installed on the Streamlight Racker. While guiding the action arms into the receiver, slide the action slide assembly with the modified Streamlight Racker Forend over the magazine tube. Set the action at about halfway. Return the bolt slide to the bolt assembly. Return the carriage stops and the right cartridge interrupter and hold them in place. Then return the trigger assembly and insert the trigger housing pin. And I'll return the screw to the other side. Return the grip with its Allen screw, and finally the cap. Again, with the forearm half racked, return the barrel assembly. Then return the magazine cap and test for function. And that's it.